Hey, my name is Rashad Witherspoon, and I'm calling from out of St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh, what's up, man?
And I just want to know, why is it that all the elites or, high corporate media feel that they know and understand UBI and how it would affect people in, let's say, black neighborhoods or low-income neighborhoods? I'm a black man, and I'm from St. Louis, and I know firsthand that African Americans would rather take money than a welfare program and stay stuck in it. So when people in mainstream media, they go out and saying that they can understand
I'm loving
how
this guy.
it would affect the poor, they don't understand because they've never been there. My
Yes!
question is, why hasn't Andrew Yang decided to go to a black neighborhood, a black community, and speak on UBI and let them understand that the media understand that this is really what low-income communities would rather have than welfare? Thanks, guys.
Oh, man, that was beautiful.
That was a great question. Yeah, I mean, I
I love that.
I actually do. That is a really good question. Why hasn't Yang done that? Because I agree 100% with what he was saying, and it is. There's someone on Twitter, I forgot their name. They tweet about this a lot, and they bring up great points. And I think it's one of the things is that like a lot of these elites, I don't think a lot of these elite people even realize how patronizing it is.
I love that,
People
baby.
would lose their welfare, and it's like, oh, I love going to the government to prove I'm poor and grovel for money. Like, what do the people think that welfare is like? Just like, oh, great, I love going to the welfare office and
And it
arguing with these
psychologically
people.
screws up these communities, and it creates a depression. It's
Andrew,
bad.
Hold on. Why is universal basic income universal? Because everyone gets it, so no one feels bad for getting it or not getting it. We all get it. You don't have to skip shifts at being a waiter to fall into the brackets so your health care is covered. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. It's just money you are given, and I agree 100%.
Dude, who was that guy?
That was Rashad Witherspoon, I believe you said.
Yeah, and man, let me tell you,
St. Louis?
go to St. Louis. My sister got her freaking degree at SLU, baby, and that's a beautiful town full of beautiful people. And yeah, the African American community in St. Louis, their voices need to be heard. I'm so glad that you called in, because if you're suggesting to me that a bunch of these prick social elites that go to Nerd Prom and run CNN and MSNBC and NBC are all telling you stupid talking points they learned from their rich daddies that send them to the rich schools that has nothing to do with what's really happening, and they never put boots on the ground. You are talking about 90% of the talking heads that you have seen on all the mainstream
But why
media.
hasn't Yang done it? Right?
Yeah,
That's
well,
the
I'm
question.
getting to that part.
Okay, cool.
But like here, no, dude, you want to talk boots in the ground? I lived in impoverished freaking South America for 2 years. I have cleaned sewer ducts full of all kinds of human feces from these impoverished communities in my freaking hands and knees, and I know exactly what it's like to live amongst these people and to have their problems and rub shoulders with them and try and survive. And I've done it in America, and these elites never go there, but they all talk about wanting to care about the poor, okay? And so this is what boggles my mind about all elites, and unfortunately, I hate to say, Andrew Yang is in this category. And Zach Grumman, if you're listening, you got to do this, brother.
I agree. I think it'd be a great movement. Yeah.
Yeah, take Martin Luther King's trail. Take his trail, study his life, and you look at every single one of those churches that Martin Luther King went to and spoke at. You look at where he said, I've been to the mountaintop, baby. You look at where he said that, and I'm telling you, like 70% of the churches that Martin Luther King spoke in are still open, and they're still in predominantly African-American neighborhoods that are still plagued by many of the problems that people were plagued with during the Jim Crow era, okay? And there ain't no way any of those pastors are not going to let you say yes. I've done videos with the Boy Scouts of America in the most historically black church here in Los Angeles. When I lived in New York City, one of the most beautiful spiritual experiences I had was in an all-black African-American church in Brooklyn that I found out after leaving was a church that Martin Luther King had talked at. I was the only white guy in the audience. I was walking home from a film shoot, and I saw a bunch of people going to this church, and there was a sign that said visitors welcome. And I said, oh, that looks kind of cool. And they sound like they're having fun in there. Let me tell you, that organist was going nuts. And I was like, I'm going in there, man. And so I went in there, and I had a beautiful spiritual experience. And let me tell you, they're doing good work at that church. I wish I would have known the name, but I found out Martin Luther King had spoken there, and I was like, holy smoke, they're still filling the pews. And guess what? They're all African Americans that are U.S. citizens that can freaking vote from Brooklyn. So you need to just study the life, if not just to have a roadmap as to how you could get more African American voters, you literally walk the trail of Martin Luther King the last 3 years of his life and ask the pastor at every single African American church that he spoke at, or even just the white churches he spoke at. You asked to speak at each one of those faith communities about the importance of UBI and loving our neighbor and restitching together the society that has been broken by our consumerism and by leftist secularism. My man, you will get votes left and right. Go to Canarsie, Brooklyn, where my buddy Jarrell lives. You will get every Jamaican and Bayesian mom, you know what I'm saying, talking Andrew Yang to their U.S. citizen kids out there. And guess what? Your headquarters are on the L train. It's that gray line. It's that gray line on the Manhattan Mat that goes past Williamsburg, where all the hipsters that CNN hires live. You go past the hipsters, okay? Go past the hipsters that work for CNN and work for Elizabeth Warren's campaign and are trashing on Tulsi Gabbard as a Russian spy right now. Go past the hipsters on the L train all the way to the end in Canarsie, Brooklyn, and start talking in chapels there. Go to the first one MLK went to. Okay, and if he didn't speak there, then find where Elijah Cummings spoke or something else.
I got a point for this. I want you to think about this.
Okay,
I feel like Yang almost has kind of like a weird thing with religion, where he won't like a lot for a while. There is still like controversy. Like, does Yang consider himself religious or not? I've heard him say, "Yeah, I'm religious," or "I raised my kids religiously," or "I was raised religious," but. So he seems to have a weird thing. I agree, man. But that was a great point you made there. But have you noticed that as well, where he seems to have a weird thing where he doesn't seem like someone who would embrace going to those churches and speaking like that, because he's kind of
in some of these communities, God, the church, your pastor's the only father you have, one of the only stable figures out there. These communities are ruined by violence and by drug abuse.
I hear you. I'm just saying.
You know,
like
Yang's plug in, dog. Plug into the mainframe. Let me put this in Andrew Yang techie terms. All right? Plug into the mainframe. There's already a mainframe, and it's called the churches. Okay? Go to the churches, Andrew Yang, and you're going to get African American voters in droves, because guess what? You know who they don't trust? Government. The government that redlined them. The government that screws them, the government that promises them crap and never, ever delivers. You know who they don't trust? The media. You want to see a criminal? Like, my buddy's an African-American actor. He's half white, half African-American. He's ripped. He's half Swedish, half African-American. And he always comes back saying, dude, man, if I said yes to my agent every time he asked me if there was a role, and if I went to work every single day, I could be an inmate or a drug dealer. Because all of Hollywood is always writing scripts where the African Americans are inmates or drug dealers. He's like, if I want to be a thug on the silver screen every single day, then I would be working every single day. But man, you know, a well-involved father? Yeah, you know, I never get that role. You know what I'm saying? He's like, a Wall Street, a trader, a tax accountant, a judge. You know, no, I never get that role. All my white friends always get that role. You know what I'm saying? So the African American communities, they don't trust the government that redlined them. They don't trust Hollywood, okay, that misrepresents them, makes everybody think all African Americans do is walk around with hoodies and guns. They don't trust these people. You know who they do trust? Their pastor. They'll listen to their pastor. So plug into the mainframe, Andrew Yang. Meet that freaking pastor.
Plug into the main. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand. We get it.
So anyway.